Decisions made here in Washington are shaping Colorado. From who has a job to our public lands, from schools to national parks, to whether Denver is willing to give up its immigration policy in order to hold on to federal funding. Even now including whether Colorado's governor will risk federal funding or whether he might offer a pardon to an ally of the president. We're covering it all tonight live from Capitol Hill in Washington, where President Trump will address a joint session of Congress this evening. And then tomorrow, it's all eyes on Denver's mayor, who testifies before Congress. Mayor Mike Johnston agreed to voluntarily come before the House Oversight Committee, knowing that he would get subpoenaed and dragged in if he refused. Republicans on the committee are investigating so-called sanctuary cities. As we've discussed here again and again, there's no legal definition of sanctuary city, but Denver does limit local cooperation with federal immigration agents to only work with them on cases where they have a warrant or where they're trying to pick up a violent criminal. Sources close to the mayor tell me that he is prepared to defend Denver's policies here tomorrow. He's going to let the Republicans on the committee argue over the definition of sanctuary city. And while some Republicans in Colorado have even called for the mayor's arrest, sources close to the mayor tell me that he will not be invoking the Fifth Amendment to avoid any questions tomorrow. Johnston will testify alongside the mayors of Boston and Chicago. New York's Mayor Eric Adams will be there as well. Expect him to get kid glove treatment from Republicans because he's agreed to help the Trump administration enforce immigration law in New York City. Wouldn't you know, he made that announcement just as the Justice Department moved to drop a federal bribery case against him. Colorado's Republican representatives in Congress are literally lining up at the door of the Oversight Committee to get a chance to question Johnston and perhaps come away with the soundbite that gets replayed on cable news. Colorado's Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is on the committee. She will question Mayor Johnston. A fun fact, tomorrow will be the first time those two have ever met. And the three other Colorado Republicans in Congress, Jeff Hurd, Jeff Crank, and Gabe Evans, have all attempted to wave onto the committee. Basically, they're asking for an extra or a substitute spot to question Johnston if other members don't show up. We're going to have to wait and see who indeed shows up to question him tomorrow. Johnston declined to sit down with us to answer questions about his testimony ahead of time. In a podcast appearance last week, he struck a hopeful, perhaps a bit naive tone.
I'm going to make the remarkable stance of assuming best intent, and that we're going to make the clear case for what we've done and why we think it works. We think this is a solvable problem, and we'd love Congress's help in trying to solve it. They want to make this a divisive, dramatic, catastrophic issue on immigration, and it's not. It doesn't have to be ideological.
If you're curious whether House Republicans share Mayor Johnston's hopeful view of bipartisan cooperation on immigration, here's a little sampling of the hype video they put out.
Denver Mayor Mike Johnston suggesting he would use Denver police to block federal officials from carrying out mass deportation efforts.
Some say the mayor's comments went too far. They even accuse him of trying to start a civil war.
If they're going to continue to disobey the law, then I think we should cut as much of their federal funding as we can cut.
It's like a movie trailer. Republicans are threatening to withhold federal funding from Denver if the city doesn't change its immigration policies. The city's budget estimates that Denver's federal funding, federal grants for 2025, is about $100 million. It's approximately 2% of the city's $4.4 billion annual budget. Those grants include Head Start funding, money for affordable housing, FEMA grants for firefighters' equipment, Department of Justice funding to address crime hotspots, and the list goes on and on. We should mention Denver taxpayers are already on the hook for up to $2 million in the mayor's legal expenses to help him prepare for his interrogation before Congress, as well as the continuing investigation by House Republicans. Republicans are demanding, and the city has provided records on its immigration policies. That expense, the approved $2 million, is aimed at allowing the city's attorneys to keep working on all the other city business and then have this outside law firm focus on the congressional investigation. The expenditure was approved by City Council. President Trump campaigned on restoring free speech in America. Yet in the early days of his administration, his team has taken a number of steps to limit speech that he does not like, whether that's blocking journalists from his events if they won't use his term Gulf of America, Whether that's his point man on immigration, threatening to have activists arrested because they shouted out immigrants' rights to them during raids, or whether it's the president's latest idea to withdraw federal funding from colleges and universities that allow student protests he doesn't like. Our Angeline McCall looks at the potential impact in Colorado.
Last year, widespread protests on college campuses.
Free Palestine!
This year, a threat about what would happen if they do it again.
What the president is doing here is, frankly, this is just mostly political theater.
CU law professor Deep Kulasekaram says President Trump has little authority to carry out his threat to expel protesting students and punish colleges that allow it.
There's so many legal problems with this post, including the idea that the president can simply deem protest or a certain type of protest illegal.
I would imagine that most universities would take, real issue with this.
First of all, let's be clear here. Most universities, colleges, all higher education places already have rules about how protests and voicing of opinion can happen.
The president outlined a plan that would include a freeze on funding to colleges that allow so-called illegal protests.
The president, on his own authority, has no ability to freeze funding to universities. If there is a problem on a university campus in which the type of speech or activities are violating federal law, that's not up to the president to make that decision. That university would have to go through a process.
Right now, it's a promise experts say that legally doesn't have much chance of turning into reality, but the warning itself could leave lasting impacts.
The real harm here is that it can chill speech that is lawful because it makes people afraid. And I think that any government official, and especially the President of the United States, should be ashamed of doing something that violates the fundamental precept of the United States Constitution.
Trump threatened to deport students to their country of origin if they participate in protests, if they're not from the United States, and also imprison those who become agitators.
Angeline, when we talk about the idea of losing federal funding, that threat is a lot more impactful for a college or university, where the city of Denver could lose 2% of its funding. That would be tough, but it wouldn't destroy the city of Denver, whereas a college or university is more dependent on federal funding.
Yeah, we're talking millions of dollars. When you take just a look at Columbia University, for instance, in New York City, that would be millions upon millions of dollars, and then triple that, or by all the difference it would make across universities in the United States. Okay.
Angeline McCall, thank you very much. President Trump's new tariff war with Canada, Mexico, and China is likely to make the products that Coloradans buy more expensive. But on the bright side, it is making stocks a lot cheaper. The stock market dropped sharply today, with the S&P 500 giving up all of its post-election gains on news of the tariff war. Canada is hitting back by going after President Trump's billionaire friend Elon Musk, canceling a deal with SpaceX and limiting involvement with some other American companies. China has announced its own tariffs on American food and cut ties with some U.S. companies. This trade war could have a significant impact in Colorado. Canada and China are our state's top import markets and among Colorado's top export markets. Colorado's top import, by far, is Canadian oil, which matters if you buy gas in the state of Colorado. The state's top export is beef, so this could be a rough stretch for the ag industry. Small business owners gathered in Denver today to talk about the impacts they expect the tariffs will have on them and on their customers.
We've had banks cut our credit line. Our customs broker is asking for deposits up front. We're losing customers on both sides of the border. It's an all-out trade war now.
The World Trade Center in Denver and Farmers for Free Trade hosted today's town hall discussion. They estimate that Coloradans will face more than $1.4 billion in new tariffs. 30% of Colorado's imports come from Canada. State imports $5.6 billion worth of goods from Canada annually and exports another $2 billion back. There is real excitement right now from some Colorado Republicans at the thought of the Trump administration, the Justice Department specifically, getting involved in the case of Tina Peters. She, of course, is the former Mesa County clerk, now convicted felon, who was sentenced for breaching her county's election systems. The Republicans ultimately want Democratic Governor Jared Polis to be pressured into pardoning Peters, who just started serving a 9-year sentence for tampering with voting systems. You may recall Polis ducked our questions last week about whether he might ever pardon Peters under pressure from Trump. What has happened at this point, late yesterday afternoon actually, is that the feds have filed what's called a statement of interest in Peters' case. Basically, they are getting involved in her appeal. It came with an announcement that the Justice Department is also going to investigate her prosecution, which happened at the local level, as a potential abuse of power. Peters admitted that she turned off the security cameras in her office, used another man's ID to sneak a computer hacker into her system as they unsuccessfully searched for election rigging. She was unrepentant and defiant about what she did at sentencing, and that's one reason that she got 9 years on multiple felonies. President Trump cannot pardon Tina Peters himself because she was convicted on state crimes, not federal crimes, hence the pressure campaign on Polis. Last week, Polis's office sidestepped questions about whether a Trump threat of either an investigation or withholding federal funding might get him to trade that pardon for federal dollars. So President Donald Trump will address Congress here tonight on Capitol Hill. One congresswoman from Colorado says she will not be here. She's attempting to send a message. I'll ask her if that might backfire. Next. Welcome back to Washington. President Donald Trump will address Congress here in just a little bit tonight. It's essentially a State of the Union for the first year of a president's term. It's just not technically called a State of the Union address. And as always, you've got members of Congress, including those from Colorado, who are bringing a guest with the hope that that guest's presence sends a message. Colorado's Democratic Senators Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper are both bringing former Forest Service workers, one from the White River National Forest, the other from the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forest. The senators say both of their guests got caught up in the firing of 3,400 probationary Forest Service workers by Elon Musk and his government cost-cutting team. Republican Representative Gabe Evans, former police officer, is bringing the mother of a college student who died of a fentanyl overdose after taking a counterfeit pill. Evans has promised that he's going to prioritize legislation cracking down on fentanyl, which he says, quote, often ties back to the importance of border security, which is a leading issue for him. Democrat Brittany Petterson invited Lakewood Mayor Wendy Strom to be here tonight. The mayor's going to be here. Petterson will not. She's at home with her 5-week-old baby. Lakewood's federal center, as we've discussed here, could be drastically impacted by federal downsizing. It's described as the largest concentration of federal agencies outside of Washington. Today, the General Services Administration put several buildings at the Lakewood Federal Center on a list of non-core properties that might be sold off or shut down. Mayor Strom says that was news to her. The Trump administration has not shared specifics with locals.
I wish I could say more about the Federal Center. We have been talking. We're trying to come up with plans. At least, I guess the silver lining on this is we do at least now have an idea as to what it is that we're looking at. Because up until a few minutes ago, really, it wasn't. We didn't know. There wasn't a lot of clarity.
Some Democrats in Congress are boycotting President Trump's address tonight, including Colorado's Democratic Congresswoman Diana DeGette from Denver. She blasted Trump's actions over Ukraine as disgraceful, said that some of his work around disassembling government agencies without the involvement of Congress has been illegal. At a time, though, when DeGette's Republican counterparts are being criticized for ducking town halls with angry voters, we asked her if she and others skipping the speech tonight run the risk of looking like they're not doing their job.
My job is not to go and sit and be a passive audience in the chamber while Donald Trump tells lies to Congress. My job is to try to stop them from passing legislation that's going to harm my constituents and take away their health care in order to give tax cuts to billionaires. That's my job.
Join me following Trump's address to Congress tonight on 9 News at 9 and 10, when I'll be speaking with several members of Colorado's congressional delegation about what they see and hear tonight.
Back here in Colorado, we're tracking a powerful winter storm that produced blizzard conditions over the eastern half of our state today. That system is tracking off to the east, so much calmer and a decent evening drive for downtown Denver areas and along that I-25 stretch. Completely different story on I-70. Road closures, accidents, snow, blowing snow, treacherous conditions up there with 7 to 13 inches of snow. I can understand why you'd want to go up there and go skiing. Temperatures have cooled back to the mid-30s after a high of 47. The winds have been ferocious. The peak gust 82 miles per hour near Boyero in Lincoln County, Hugo, Lyman, Centennial, Denver, all with wind gusts that really created some travel issues by air and by land. Things are calming down a little bit. The high wind warning has canceled out for most of Colorado. Our storm is tracking east, becoming a severe weather threat for about 7 states with large tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds. We have residual snow showers coming in from the northwest into the central and southern mountains. Those snow showers move out, skies clear. We have a beautiful day coming up tomorrow ahead of the next storm I'm tracking for Thursday into Friday. So a much calmer evening, decreasing wind ahead of a beautiful Wednesday at 56 degrees. Next storm, rain showers Thursday night, snow showers Friday morning. Check out your weekend. Highs near 70 on Sunday.
There's a lot going on here in Washington that is outside of our control. How we respond to needs in our own community is up to us. Hundreds of students joined forces for a day of service. Next. Welcome back to Washington. You know, there was a day when getting elected to Congress meant that you would be of service to your community. Nowadays, it's hit or miss. But if you want to see service in action, look to what 700 students did in Denver today.
Is it going to smile? We're working to be agents of change and to really live out the Loretto values, which are faith, community, justice, and respect. Hi, my name is Ellie White. I'm a senior at St. Mary's Academy in Denver, Colorado. Good job. So today is our service day, our All Academy Service Day. Students from grades 3 to 12 are participating, and we're all collaborating to support these local nonprofits to make certain products for their patrons. Yeah, you're going to make them really happy, Josie. To contribute to the community within a learning setting, I think is really important to developing that sense of agency and that sense of purpose.
Wait, what are these then? Project Angel Heart will decorate 236 bags. For Project Linus, we will make 40 fleece blankets. And for A Precious Child, we will complete 504 snack bags. My name is Christina Garcia, Director of Loretto Projects and Community Engagement at St. Mary's Academy. So St. Mary's Academy was founded 160 years ago, and our mission is still the same, and it is to stand with others.
It's really empowering to be a part of this kind of change. It's been ingrained in our thinking and our philosophy of, this is what we're meant to do, and this is what they're teaching us at St. Mary's Academy. Nice.
And that is what we hope our students walk away with, is to know that they are capable to lead with heart and to make an impact on not only their school community, but the wider community and the world.
Through their day of service, those students put together about 800 items to be donated. Just got a great viewer question challenging something we said here on this program tonight. We'll get into it in your feedback next. Welcome back from Washington. Feedback tonight from Jim, who writes in to say, why do you have to make it sound like New York Mayor Eric Adams is doing a bad thing by helping the administration administer immigration law? You can decide for yourself whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. You just should know, as we said, that he agreed to do that right as the Trump Justice Department decided to drop his bribery case, a decision that was met with the resignation of a slew of prosecutors who felt that it was underhanded. Jim continues, enforcing the law should be the requirement of every elected public official. That's where it gets tricky, Jim, because courts have held that local law enforcement and local officials are not required to enforce federal immigration law. That will be at the crux of Denver Mayor Mike Johnson's testimony before Congress tomorrow. We will see you at 9 and 10 with address coverage, and tomorrow to cover the mayor's testimony. See you next time.